Hi, I'm Sana, and I'm going to tell you about how to focus the telescope at the 1 meter telescope at the LNI Carswell Observatory with the CCD camera. So this step has to be done after you have connected up the telescope and after it's looking at a star. The object that it needs to be looking at to focus should be a reasonably dim star, about 5th magnitude, a little bit dimmer. So for this example, we're looking at a 4.37 magnitude star. And the reason for this is because if the star is too bright, it's overexposed and you're going to have issues focusing. Same thing for if it's too dim. And a 5th magnitude star works pretty well for this. So in order to focus, you have to come over into this focus tab on the left of the plane wave interface, and you enable the focuser. So then I can just move this over to the side a little bit because we don't need the sky viewer to talk about this. And the 3 things that you want to have visible when you're focusing is the focus tab on plane wave interface, your image, and then also this progress bar. The image that you're looking at here needs to be taken in the focus tools tab of the CCD, so you don't want to be saving any of these images. So the first thing to notice is that this image looks pretty bad. You can see the stars, but they're not really defined. So when you're coming over into this FITS viewer over here, you want to change that by clicking this button right here. This brings up intensity transformations, so you can change the way that the image looks. There's a few different things that you can play around with to get an image that you're happy with, but one really good method is to open the Bjorn method, click planetary, and then set the background to medium, and that will give you a pretty clear view of the star. But of course, you can play around with this to set whatever you like. The point of focusing this is to essentially get this star to be the smallest that it can. So what you're going to be doing is moving the focuser to different positions. If the image gets worse, you want to move it in the other direction, and if the image gets better, you want to keep moving it in that direction. And this might take a few minutes or a little bit longer than a few minutes for you to do, and you really want to play around with the different values and experiment to get the best focus possible. So this focus does look pretty good, but of course we always want to see if we can get the focus to look a little bit better. So what we need to do is come into this focus tab in plane wave and change this value. The position here just tells you the focuser position, and you want to change this, and there's 2 different ways that you can do it. First of all, you can click these in and out buttons. So if I click the in, you can see the focuser position move, and then I can hit out and it will move in the opposite direction. A better way of doing this is by actually coming into this target section right here and typing in a number. So currently it's at 19,800, so I can change this to 20,000 and press go to, and the focuser position will move to about 20,000. This is generally what you want to do because, again, it is more precise and you have more control over it. So just for this example, the focus looks pretty good, so we can just try moving it in an arbitrary direction and trying to see if the image gets better or worse. So let's take it from 20,000 to 20,500 and press go to, and then you want to keep an eye on probably the brightest star that's in your field. You will want to give it a few seconds to fully refresh, and this is where the progress bar comes into play. It'll tell you it's exposing light or it's downloading light, and you can keep an eye on this progress bar to see how much of that is actually done. When you're comparing 2 focus points to each other, you really want to give this maybe 1 or 2 frames to completely refresh so that you're actually seeing the differences in focus and not just the last focus point that you took. So comparing this to 20,000, it looks a little bit worse. So we can move this back down to 20,000 again. Since the focus got worse when we moved it to 25,000, we want to move it back down to a better position. And now when that has stabilized, we can move this back down to about 19,000. To start off with focusing, moving it by in increments of 500 is a good rule to follow. since that provides enough of a change for you to see what direction is making it better or worse. Give that a second to stabilize. And it looks a little bit worse, so we're probably better off with 19,500. Go to that. And again, just give it a minute to refresh. All right, so this is probably very close to the best focus point. So now you'll start to move it in increments of 1 to 200 just to really fine tune it. So we can go to 19,700. And it's just exposing light, so we want to give it a second. And downloading. So it seems that that looks a little bit better, but we can increase that even more just to see what happens. And that's looking a little bit worse, so we can go back down to 19,700. And that is probably the correct focus point for your star. So when you're actually doing this, it will probably take a little bit longer, and it's a good idea to really play around with the focus point and enter different values just to get a really good idea and get the focus as good as you can. Make sure that you write down these values as well, just so you can get a good focus point and go back to it if any of the other changes you made the image worse. Generally, a very important number to write down is the focuser position before you've made any changes, since that is the focus point from the last set of observations and is likely very close to the focus point that you'll have that night. It's important to also note that this focus value does change from night to night, mainly dependent on temperature. So you're not going to have the exact same focus point every single observation, but it should be close. Generally, values between about 17,000 and 20,000 are expected for this telescope. So if you're in that range, you're likely good. And that's probably a good focus point. Okay, so that is how you focus the CCD camera on the 1 meter telescope at the LNI Carswell Observatory. And there are some videos to watch on how to set up the telescope and how to connect the CCD, both of which you will need to do in order to focus the telescope.